Hey everybody, Fun Stampers Journey Coach Janice Whiting here. Today I am going to talk a little bit about our amazing inks. Now, in particular, I want to talk about our Black Licorice ink. I'm going to, here in a second, switch over and show you a little bit of a sample, do a little demo. I'm basically going to compare and show you our True Color Fusion Black Licorice ink, which is a hybrid, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. I'm going to show you the Memento dye-based ink, and then I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate with the Colorbox Pigment ink, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera view and tell you everything you need to know about these guys and why I think this one is the best. Of course, I'm a little biased, but hey, you know, it is pretty awesome. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first one I want to talk about is our dye, just our pure dye-based ink. And again, I'm using the Memento dye-based ink. Now, I'm also going to use, the stamp I'm going to use is adorable little lemon slice or orange slice stamp from our homemade stamp set. And oh, let's just shed a tear, shall we? Because this set is on our retired list. Sad for me, good news for you, because that means you can get this set at 30% off, and it is live, guys. So you can go to my website, www.funstampersjourney.com/Janice Whiting today and purchase this at 30% off. Now, it is only until while supplies last, rather. So just keep that in mind. Now, this set is kind of special to me because I've made some fun projects with this. I even had a card that has gotten thousands of views using this stamp set as a shaker card. And anyway, I'm like shedding a tear seeing this one go away. I'm hoping that Richard puts in a cute mason jar stamp, replaces it with another one in the new catalog. Well, we shall see. This is, again, it's the homemade stamp set. I just had to point that out. Okay, and of course point out our retirement sale is going on, so take advantage. Okay, so we have, what I have here is just a scrap piece of our whipped cream cardstock. Now, our cardstock, just so you know, this is an 80-pound weight, okay? So it does, the weight and ink, weight of paper and the type of ink you use does come into play, okay? Now, our 80-pound cardstock is fantastic and awesome, and so we're not going to have to worry too much about any bleeding, but I will show you that just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my little cute lemon slice, orange slice, whatever, stamp him on. Okay, he's good to go, and I'm going to go ahead and label this, and this is dye-based ink. Okay, dye ink. Let me zoom in a little bit more so we can see just a little bit closer up. Okay, there we go. So that's, hopefully that's not, yeah, good. Okay, so dye-based ink. A little bit about dye-based ink, okay? So you'll notice, if we look at the pad, it is kind of like, it's pretty stiff, it's pretty firm felt pad, okay? It doesn't look like it's got a whole bunch of ink in it, but it does, okay? So meaning it's not very liquidy or juicy or squishy or anything. It's pretty firm. The ink obviously is on my finger, and one way to think about dye-based ink is just the name of it. It dyes things. So as I'm wiping this off, it's kind of dyed my finger a wee bit. A good bit. So what it's doing to my finger, it does to your paper. So the dye-based ink is kind of getting into your paper fibers, and it's dyeing your paper, and that's where the colors come from, okay? It will seep through on some papers. I went ahead and I stamped some of the 3 that I'm using, so that's the dye-based ink. And you can see it does seep through, and actually you'll see most of these do, but this is very thin, you know, notebook paper, but it is good to know. So if you have a planner, depending upon the thickness of your planner paper, you know, you may or may not get some bleed through or some seeping with your dye-based ink. One thing to know is it dries super fast. right? You can touch it. I just stamped it just a second ago. So dries super fast. You don't usually get any, you know, smudging or anything right away. The one thing about Memento dye-based ink is that, you know, you can use your Copic markers to color and it will not, you know, smear. I have a little sample here. Let's see if it'll focus. So that's using our Copic markers. And with Memento, specifically Memento ink, okay, it works great. And if you are a Copic marker user, then you know that. But that is good to know. Okay, so that's a little bit about dye ink. Let's go ahead and transfer, or go ahead and use our pigment ink. Now, I'm using the Color Box pigment ink just because that is the ink that I have, but all pigment inks work just about in the same way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the cover off and I'll show you the pad. Woo. Now the pad is different. It's not a felt pad. This is like, I don't know how to, it's like a foamy type pad, and you'll see right away my finger like hides down in there because this pad, if you are feeling it, think of it like a sponge, a very like fine sponge, and the ink is actually sitting on top of my finger, and a little bit different from the dye-based ink that kind of stained my finger. That stain is still there, but the ink actually comes off pretty quickly off my finger. So it's doing similar thing to your paper. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this up. And because the pad is so squishy, you're going to get ink kind of all over your ink. So just keep all over your stamp. So keep that in mind. I'm so used to felt pads that I'll go to, you know, if I don't actually use pigment ink all that much. So when I do on occasion, I oftentimes forget that I don't need to press it down so hard as far as when I'm inking. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that, lift up. Okay. The thing with this ink, and I'll go ahead and label it Pigment. Okay, there's some benefits to pigment. Pigment colors are vibrant, right? They're so pretty, very vibrant. I'm using black, so, you know, obviously you can't see how vibrant it is, especially since I didn't use, you know, like a red or orange or something. But they are very colorful, as the word says, pigment. The pad color is the color that you're going to get on your paper, pretty much. The deal with the pigment ink, though, is that it sticks to the surface of your paper. And so that means that there is a longer drying time. So for example, remember I came and took my finger and I kind of tried to smear the dye bank, did not smear. If I did that with the pigment, and you'll notice, I'll lift this up. I don't know if you can tell, but if you might be able to tell that it's smeared. And I don't know if you can pick that up or not, but it smeared right as I went right across it. So it does not dry quickly. It dries, it just takes a little bit longer to dry. And if you wanted to do any type of coloring, or really if you wanted to touch it at all and be safe of any smearing, you would need to make sure you heat set it. Okay, so those are kind of the main things with pigment. Excuse me. All right, so those are the two most popular kinds. If you go into any big box craft store, these are the two that you'll probably find. You will find. There are more. There's chalk ink. There's stays on ink. There's indie. There's a lot of inks, right? But these are the two most popular, especially for crafting. Now let's go ahead and talk about our ink, the ink that I sell, that of course I think is fantastic, which is our True Color Fusion ink. Now I'm using Black Licorice just because this is the most popular color. When we stamp, we usually like to stamp in black and then do, you know, color in or whatever, just generally speaking. So let me go ahead and grab my little lemon slice, and let me go ahead and talk about our pad. Now you'll notice our pad, if you can tell, I don't know if that picks up on the screen, is a felt pad. So this is not a sponge like the pigment. It's actually more like the dye ink pad, where, you know, the color kind of sticks onto your finger. The pad is not squishy. It may not look like it has much ink on it, but it does. It's just kind of filled there. And it, again, works in a similar way. It does not, so look there, because it's not a spongy, it just, the ink just stays just on the raised image of your stamp. I'm going to go ahead and stamp down, stamp up. Ooh, I love our ink. Guys, our ink is so fun. If you were here, you would be able to go and you would see, oh, wow, yeah, there's a difference. I'm going to write FSJ, or actually I'll write FSJ. Why not? This is True Color Fusion is our name for our ink, which basically means it is a hybrid. Okay, now if you were here and in person, you would be able to see, I don't know if it picks up on camera, but our black is a really true black. It's really, really dark, and it inks and stamps so beautifully. In comparison to these two, these almost look like just a little bit of a duller black. I would say this one comes a close second, but this is just a more vibrant, true color black. And I have not seen a black that vibrant or that true to color in all of my stamping career and experience. So that's quite nice. Smudge proof, okay, just like the die. Stamp, you can almost immediately stamp and touch, and you don't have to worry about any smudging whatsoever. Now the question all of my Copic colorers want to know is, can I use my Copics with my FSJ ink? And you can, but you need to heat set it first, okay? I am not always so patient. I don't always heat set it, but you do get a little bit of bleeding if you use your Copic markers and color in. Now I'm going to go ahead and color all three of these so you can see, all right? So this was the Memento, and everyone knows Memento ink is great for Copic coloring. You don't get the nice vibrant black as you would with our FSJ ink, but you don't get any bleeding, so there you go. The Pigment ink, sad to say, it does smear, and you can see right away it does smear. And I will hold it up, and obviously I wasn't trying to stay within the lines. And then our Fun Stampers Journey ink does bleed, and you will see that. It's not a lot necessarily, but there is some, okay? So it's not even smearing so much. There's just a little bit of just a little bit of bleeding, so I guess you would say. So there's the Memento. Oh, just kidding. There it is. I was like, why is it not showing? There's Memento, so obviously nice and crisp. We know that this one works great with Copics. Obviously not so great. You can see the smearing of the pigment. And then here's FSJ. So really, gosh, if I could put these two together, I can't. Well, maybe do that. I don't know. FSJ, again, it's just, I mean, you may not even be able to pick it up on camera. Just a minor, minor bleed of the ink. If I do this in comparison, you know. Now, in order to, so for me, when I color, I just try to make sure I don't like color real hard and try to smear the ink on purpose. So I don't really have an issue with it, but I know some people are sticklers, and so if you don't want any, even like the hint of a bleed, and I get it, I understand it, then just make sure you heat set it, okay? So there you go, there's that. Let's go ahead and talk about watercolor, and I was gonna do another sample here. Where did my little stamp go? I was going to stamp, and here it is, and talk about watercolor. Okay, so it's FSJ, and we will do our color, our pigment in the middle, you know, just keep with what we were doing before, and then our Memento dye-based ink. And I don't know, I love a felt pad so much better than the other pads because I guess I just stamp hard. I don't know what it is. Okay, so let me go ahead and label those so there's no confusion. So this was FSJ, Pigment, and dye-based. I'll just say dye. Okay. All right, now I guess one thing I forgot to mention about pigment kind of fades a wee bit, so just keep that in mind. All right, so here's FSJ pigment and dye base, and I'm going to grab one of my blender brushes. This is a medium, but it doesn't really matter. I just want to show you what happens when you put water to these stamps. So another benefit to our ink, which is again why I have put it as one of my favorite inks, is because it is waterproof. So especially with all the watercoloring out there. Now, you know what? I may go ahead and just, let me get a watercolor pencil so that you can actually see the color. Earlier I was doing it with water and you can see it, but I just want you to know and make sure that I am using color so you can pick up on it. Okay, I'm just using one of our watercolor pencils. I'm just gonna make a little light red or something. Okay, so FSJ, literally just stamped it about a minute ago. Watercolor, beautiful. No bleed, no seepage, it's just a beautiful watercolor look. Pigment. I'm gonna come in around here. From what I can tell, I don't see any smearing or smudging with pigment. And let's go ahead and do the dye-based. Dye base. Now there will be something you'll notice with the dye base. Dye base inks do not like water. And you will see some, what's the right word? Seepage or bleeding of that ink because it does not do well with that. All right, so let me go ahead and come back and I'm going to go over these one more time. Just so you know that I am putting plenty of water on here. And I didn't mean to make this light, medium, and dark. Okay, I think you can kind of see here. I can make this one darker if you feel like it's more. The color doesn't matter. What matters here is the water. I can keep putting more and more water on here, and it will not bleed. But let me go ahead and lift it up, and I'll show you how it's reacting. Okay, so right away you can tell that that is bleeding. Yes, the color, but it's also picking up some of that ink and it is just spreading around and it's bleeding. Okay, so not waterproof. The pigment ink, I don't really know if it does look like there's some black seepage there. So I don't know if that's just, I would say it does bleed a little bit. And then FSJ, no bleeding whatsoever. You see the water, because I told you I put plenty of water around there, so it's definitely wet. But you'll notice it is completely waterproof. There is no bleeding whatsoever, no hint of bleeding. It is completely waterproof. Eek, not so much there. And I did do this test using it's just regular water. No watercolor pencil, just water, and just to see if that made any difference as far as seeing the bleeding. And there's the results. This was the dye-based ink. You can kind of see that seepage. The pigment, I didn't even try, actually. That was just this. And then, of course, this is the FSJ. And I just used water, and you couldn't see the water, so I wanted to go ahead and make sure you knew that I was using watercolor. So, so anyway, that was these three, using the watercolor over the pigment, so, or over the ink. So anyway, I wanted you to see that because that is one of the reasons why I love our ink. It's waterproof, so you can use it for all of the watercolor techniques. All these other ones, not so much. I mean, the pigment, it doesn't bleed as much, but there is a little bit. So there you go. Let's see here, which one? So I did the watercolor test. FSJ definitely wins watercolor test. As far as clean, crisp image, I definitely think watercolor because of the vibrancy. FSJ wins that test. Copic coloring markers, Copic marker coloring, I definitely say Memento. If without heat setting, the Memento dye ink definitely wins that test. Not by much, because here's our FSJ. Still pretty, but it's just not as crisp, right? There's a little bit of seepage. But again, if it's heat set, then it's the same. There is an extra step, but you know, so you know, this one's kind of So right now, really, this one has a leg up because of the watercolor, because of the clear, crisp image. What am I trying to say? Clear, crisp image and bright, vibrant black. Really, the blackest black I've seen. And then, you know, so 2 to 1. Okay, so I think that is. Oh. That's mostly it. I didn't go over all the specifics of our True Color Fusion. So, I mean, I did mention something. It's acid-free, it's archival, it's non-fading, okay? You can use it on all paper surfaces, and you can use it on glass, fabric, wood, plastic, metal, and clay if you heat set it using our heat gun, okay? I talked about the pad, crisp, bright, non-bleeding impression, fast-drying, waterproof. Okay. All of those things. So there you go. All right. We've just reviewed dye-based ink, pigment ink, and of course my favorite, which is our FSJ True Color Fusion Hybrid ink. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. Everyone always asks what's the difference between our inks and other inks, so there you have a pretty honest review of our inks. I would say the only maybe downside is that you do have to heat set it to color with Copic markers, but I don't necessarily feel like that's a downside. I color with mine often enough, and I don't even, to be honest, I just don't even worry about it too much. But I know some of you guys are very particular about it, and so just heat set it and you're good to go. Again, it is waterproof, will not smear, will not smudge. You can stamp and go to town as far as coloring it using watercolor pencils. You can stamp and go to town using any of our other coloring mediums on it, like our paint or our colored pencils, our splashes, our silks. They all work together, okay? That's the one thing that we have here with Fun Stampers Journey is lots of different coloring mediums. And I'll say it again. Hello, phone. I'll say it again. We have obviously our ink pads, our re-inkers. We have our splashes. We have our silks. We have our colored pencils and our watercolored pencils. And I don't know if I missed one, but I think that's 6 or 7 different coloring mediums. So acrylic paints, I don't know if I said that, but we do. Anyway, so there you go. Hopefully I answered some questions for those of you who were curious about our ink. I love it. I think it's super fun and amazing, super vibrant. Obviously, I don't know if you can tell behind me, but I have all of our colors, and they're just beautiful and vibrant. We have so many fun, beautiful colors. I was doing a test for one of my coaches yesterday on an ink pad that she had, and we were using Turbo Teal, and I was using it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love. The ink is so bright and vibrant. Granted, Turbo Teal is one of our Be Amazing collection colors, and they are just naturally bright, what am I trying to say? Vibrant and bright, but they're beautiful. Guys, if you have not tried our inks, I highly recommend them. You just heard all of the benefits to them, and I don't know what else to say about it other than go get you one, because I think you would enjoy it. All right, the only other thing I wanted to mention today is I wanted to show you, I'm just going to stamp real quick. I just wanted to recap a little bit on our, oh, I love that stamp. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. On our May Bloom box. I just stamped one of them because it's so gorgeous. Again, using our beautiful ink. So pretty. Oh my gosh, I love it. Again, this is a great ink for fine detail stamping. So pretty. May Bloom box, guys. If you have not signed up, you want to sign up. It is gorgeous. Card 1, card 2, beautiful card 3. Oh my gosh. Oh, and I will have something to say about that. Okay, so this here, since we're talking about inks, right? This ink right here is our whipped cream ink, and we have 2 inks that are purely Pigment base. So it's not True Color Fusion. It's the white one and our buttercream. So whipped cream and buttercream are Pigment base, and so that means you do have to heat set it for it to dry or just let it sit out to dry longer. But all our other inks are Fusion inks and they dry almost instantaneously, and you don't have to worry about any smearing. But isn't that so pretty? Anyway, I just wanted to pop in and mention that as well, just because I just know that you love it and I don't want you to miss out, okay? Because once May is gone, you will not have another opportunity to get this stamp set. You'd have to wait for 3 months before it comes back out, because it is exclusive to my Bloom Box subscribers, okay? Okay guys, I think that's it for me today. Hopefully you found it informative. Ask me questions below. I did not go into there's many different kinds of inks I didn't mention. I just want to talk about the 2 most popular, and then of course our brand, which is a mixture of the 2 most popular, and why it's a great ink. All right, I think that's it. If you have any questions, contact me. If you are ready to purchase some of that ink, you can go to www.funstampersjourney.com/Janice Whiting and go explore our new website because it is so awesome and fun. I will say that if you are one of my customers and you've already registered to be a customer of mine, it will ask you, because we have started a new website, it will ask you to enter a new password, or to reset up basically a new password. And so just click the forgot password and go through that process of just changing out your password real quick, and then you should be fine. If you encounter trouble, then you can just check out as a guest and you should be good to go. But I definitely appreciate you guys that register and sign up as a customer of mine. I really appreciate it. And I will say that if you are interested in getting a bulk set of our inks, we do have ink bundles, okay? So obviously you can get just the 1s and the 2s. If you just want the black, try out our black, go for it. It's awesome. But if you're interested in getting many of our inks, then we have a money-saving bundle for you, and you can get those as our collection. So we have Confectionery Days, Party Pop, Nature, and a few others. Rich Sorbets, I think I mentioned them all. Anyway, so that's just FYI in case you are curious and wondering. Okay guys, I think that's it. I am going to be up next showing you another cards tutorial, so stay tuned.